All right, let's get right into it. Today, we are unpacking the sheer complexity, the history, and the intense botany behind a plant that you probably have sitting in your kitchen right this very second. We're talking about Zingiber officinale. You know, ginger. I was absolutely amazed when I started digging into the deep botanical breakdown of this stuff, and I think by the end of this explainer, we're all going to completely reevaluate this fascinating everyday staple. So let's kick things off with a question that might just turn your culinary world entirely upside down. Is everything you know about the ginger root fundamentally wrong? Think about it. Every time you're in the grocery store, or maybe talking to a gardener, you've likely referred to this knobby, spicy little marvel as a root. But what if I told you that, scientifically speaking, you have literally never eaten a ginger root in your entire life? No way, right? Well, hang on to that thought because we are going to unpack that weird anatomical reality in just a minute. Real quick housekeeping before we get into the heavy science. This is our advanced explainer on the topic. It's specifically tailored for those of you who really love diving headfirst into the sheer complexity of biology and phytochemistry. Now, if you're looking for a slightly more basic overview, don't worry, we actually just posted a simpler version of this explainer a few days back, so definitely go check that out. Also, standard disclaimer here, when we get into the biological impacts of compounds like gingerols later on, please remember this is purely educational. It is not medical advice. Okay, here is our roadmap for today. We're going to hit 5 spectacular facts. We'll cover asexual cloning propagation, modified underground stems, aka rhizomes, phytochemical defense mechanisms, the insane agricultural engineering needed for tropical environmental simulation, and finally, ginger's surprisingly high pathological vulnerability. Let's do this. Humanity has been absolutely captivated by this plant for a staggering amount of time. I mean, it's been a botanical and medicinal staple in Eastern cultures for at least 4,400 years. And its journey across the globe, it's just remarkable. By the 14th century, it was being traded along the Silk Road with such ferocious demand that a single pound of ginger was economically valued at the exact same price as an entire live sheep. By 1585, our drive to cultivate this stuff led it to become the very first foreign spice to be successfully grown in the New World. All right, let's answer that hook from earlier. If the part of the ginger we consume isn't a root, what on earth is it? It is a rhizome. By definition, a rhizome is a continuously growing, horizontal underground stem. It puts out lateral shoots that push upward into the light and adventitious roots that grow downward into the soil. So when you buy ginger, you are actually buying a fleshy, prostrate stem system. It acts as the plant's energy storage, basically its underground survival bunker. The contrast in the plant's anatomy is just wild when you look at it. Above ground, you have this herbaceous shoot structure. Honestly, it almost looks like thick-stemmed grass or bamboo, with these narrow, lance-shaped leaves capturing all that sunlight. But below ground sits that thick, plump, horizontal rhizome structure, with shoots just starting to emerge. The actual true roots of the plant? Well, they're really just these thin, stringy fibers extending straight down from that massive underground stem. And what's really fascinating here is the geometry of how it grows. Those above-ground herbaceous shoots can tower vertically up to 4 feet high. It acts like this stately, incredibly beautiful tropical specimen. Yet the underground rhizome cluster is doing the exact opposite. It spreads horizontally, usually expanding about 1 to 2 feet wide. So you have a plant that aggressively claims territory outward beneath the soil while reaching forcefully upward into the canopy. Now, because of this highly unique structure, humanity has propagated ginger through asexual cloning for millennia. Here's how that works. First, you isolate a plump piece of the rhizome that has a visible eye or bud on it. Actually, it's very much like a potato in that regard. Second, you have to let that cut surface dry out and physically callus over for about 24 hours. This brilliantly utilizes the plant's own biological healing mechanism to create a protective scab which stops lethal rot in its tracks. Finally, you submerge it in warm, well-draining media, which triggers rapid cellular division. And just like that, a perfect genetic clone of the parent plant begins to sprout. But time dramatically alters the cellular structure of this cloned rhizome. Age dictates both its anatomy and how we use it in the kitchen. At about 4 to 5 months, you get what's called baby ginger. It has super thin skin, it's highly tender, and it features a mild, almost floral flavor profile without any of that intense heat. But leave that exact same plant in the ground for 8 to 10 months to hit full maturity, the biology totally shifts. It develops a thick, tough skin for protection, which is why you have to peel it, and its chemical profile concentrates into a highly potent, super sharp spice. Getting it to that mature stage, though, requires some serious science to precisely simulate its native equatorial environment. The soil pH has to be tightly controlled between 6.0 and 6.8, so slightly acidic to neutral. Temperature is an absolute strict baseline. The cellular metabolism of this plant demands constant warmth, right between 70 and 90 degrees Fahrenheit. If it drops below 40 degrees, the cells literally turn to mush. It's game over. Plus, the plant is a massive consumer of primary macronutrients. Having enough nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium is entirely non-negotiable for that rhizome to expand. Botanists actually call ginger a heavy feeder, but it also suffers from a condition we refer to as wet feet. Basically, it needs constant moisture, but if it sits in standing water, it will immediately suffocate and rot. So the soil matrix requires incredibly complex engineering. You need high organic matter, like vermicompost, for the heavy feeding, but it has to be aggressively balanced with sand for rapid water drainage. Then you calculate the perfect ratio of silt and clay, paired with peat or coconut coir, just to retain a thin film of moisture. It is a highly precise balancing act between aeration and hydration. Okay, let's transition into the biochemistry, which is for sure one of the most captivating parts of this whole explainer. The primary active compounds inside the rhizome are known as gingerols. Now, from an evolutionary standpoint, the plant didn't create gingerols to make our stir fries taste amazing. This is a powerful, burning chemical defense mechanism that evolved specifically to deter predators from eating its underground energy reserves. But in human biology, this exact defensive compound has scientifically proven utilities. It actively reduces nausea and is highly effective at combating cellular inflammation and joint issues. It's like nature's pharmacy hiding in plain sight. And there's a really fascinating chemical reality when we process it. Removing water fundamentally alters the chemical intensity. Because fresh ginger is largely made up of water, the dehydration process dramatically concentrates that gingerol potency. From a biochemical perspective, this means that gram for gram, dried ginger powder is significantly stronger and spicier than the fresh rhizome. It completely changes how the spice reacts on the human palate and inside our bodies. Yet, despite those potent internal defenses, ginger is shockingly fragile when faced with microbial threats. Let's look at its pathological vulnerabilities. Because the plant constantly needs moisture, it's a prime target for opportunistic pathogens. Soft rot happens super fast via anaerobic suffocation if the soil doesn't drain. Bacterial wilt can cause this horrible systemic vascular infection that collapses the plant from the inside out. But perhaps the most devastating is rhizome rot. It's caused by a highly aggressive fungus called pythium, which physically digests the underground stem alive. And up above ground, leaf spot fungi create lesions that critically disrupt the plant's ability to photosynthesize. And unfortunately, the threats aren't just microscopic. Macroscopic pests attack literally every single anatomical zone of the plant. Deep underground, you've got root knot nematodes destroying the delicate true roots, stopping nutrient uptake cold. Higher up, shoot borers will literally decapitate the central growing stem, totally halting vertical growth. Rhizome-scale insects attach themselves to the underground stem like tiny vampires and suck out the nutrient-rich sap. Meanwhile, up in the canopy, aphids and thrips act as dangerous vectors, carrying and injecting viral diseases directly into the tender leaves. All of this leads us to a seriously mind-bending scientific reality. Because of intensive human cultivation over millennia, commercial ginger completely lacks viable seeds. It can no longer reproduce sexually in the wild. That means every single piece of commercial ginger you have ever eaten and every plant grown in a container or a field today is an asexual clone. We have essentially been copying and pasting the exact same genetic material over and over again for thousands of years. Which brings us to our final, highly provocative thought for this explainer. If every piece of ginger is just a genetic clone of some ancient ancestor, completely lacking the genetic diversity that comes from sexual reproduction, how long can this single genetic line really continue to outrun its constantly evolving pathogens? It is this incredibly fragile, highly complex, and beautiful resilience that just makes you appreciate exactly what it takes to bring this botanical marvel to your plate. I hope this structured deep dive helped you grasp the fascinating science behind Zingiber. Thank you so much for learning with me today, and as always, keep exploring.